Fantastic.
Okay, good morning, everyone. This morning is all about IVF, fertility, and the wonderful role counseling plays in that journey. And we've got Tanja Faessler, who's here, who's actually in Bali, but joining us this morning to spend an hour with us to teach us about this important topic. We have so many moms who are suffering, well, who are trying to conceive and have been for a long time. We also have a lot of mamas who have had a first baby or even a second and then suffer from secondary infertility. And so this is education for all of us, and especially for those mamas out there struggling to conceive. Welcome, Tanja.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Johanna, and thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to spend the next 45 minutes, 1 hour with you all and sharing a little bit more of the knowledge, but also especially the experience that we gained over the past 12 years. I'm going to share my slides now.
Perfect. And while you do that, this is a reminder to ask your questions as we go along. So please put them in the chat and I will be asking them at a moment that is opportune. And there will be some time afterwards as well to ask Tanja some questions directly as well. Take it away.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you. And yes, so totally agree. If you have any questions, please either write it in the chat. I'm not sure, Johanna, are you going to manage the chat?
Yes, I'll manage that.
Okay, that's wonderful. And else just jump in, unmute and ask your questions. And we will also have a bit of time towards the end of the presentation. So when we discussed about like what kind of content to present today, we were really thinking about more taking the focus on the IVF journey, because IVF has been something we are seeing that is on the rise, especially in Asia, but we can see a trend that is going up all around the world. So our team, including myself, we are attending the conferences, especially in Asia, but also some of it in Europe. And we can see that IVF numbers are rising everywhere, actually. It's not just a phenomenon here in Singapore. So with that, I want to jump right into the level of emotions, you know, and these is a little bit representing a roller coaster of emotions that we can face in everyday life. We can face in different stages of our life, during puberty, during early adulthood, as well as in career settings, as well as when we embark on parenthood or when we want to embark on parenthood. And this is something that comes up over and over again and again with my clients when I'm discussing with them, like the feelings and emotions that they are experiencing. And many of them actually are not even really like 100% sure of what they are experiencing. They can kind of like maybe feel it sometimes, or they can describe certain situations, but they don't necessarily have a label to it. And for us in our work, it helps tremendously when we can identify emotions, because that really helps to then kind of like start the work with our clients. So just to share a little bit about my journey here, I was on a similar roller coaster when we decided to embark on parenthood as well. And for me, or our experience that we encountered back then, was multiple losses. So I experienced multiple miscarriage before getting pregnant with our first son. And when I look back now, what I really missed during that time was to get the support that I so much needed. Yes, there were counselors already back then, and yes, there were a lot of them, but not really somebody that I could identify that would really understand what I was going through. It was also not really necessarily someone who was talking the same language in that sense, because I was still working in the finance industry. So I spent 25 years in my first job and in banking, and it was really difficult to find someone who could really understand. So the passion that I developed during my career in banking was to coach. So I had the wonderful opportunity to have been coached by an executive coach, and I really admired the work of this coach because he was asking pinpointed questions that really made me reflect. And I then decided to actually embark on a coaching study. And with that, and with what happened to me, and then I had another miscarriage when I was expecting my second one. So then this all really came together because finally I really found my purpose. And my purpose came out of this whole experience of feeling alone, feeling hopeless, feeling frustrated, anxious, feeling jealous, feeling desperate, and feeling absolutely alone. And on top of that, I also experienced how it can put a strain onto relationships, right? So the agenda today is really like going into the infertility. So I just want to create a base now of that we have all the same understanding of what infertility is. Then I would like to just spend a little bit of time to see like what's the impact of stress and fertility, and then how counseling can actually help with positive outcomes during a fertility journey. And then we'll see how we go along. I've prepared a case study as well, and we can see how much time we have for that.
Amazing. Thank you.
I have no conflicts of interest to disclose. So here, I just need to move a little bit away. Here we go. What is infertility? Infertility is really the inability to get pregnant after a year of unprotected and regular sexual intercourse. Usually you would hear from the doctor saying that at the age of 35, your fertility starts to decline. Now, I leave that open, whether or not that is true. Statistics, of course, are done and displayed. However, in practice, we see differentiations there as well. You can be 45 and you can be extremely fertile, and you can be 32 and encounter a perimenopause.
Yes.
So we have seen it all.
I think this biological age, and there's age and there's biological age, and we see that a lot of moms don't fall in these old categories anymore, and a lot of doctors who say 45 is the new 35, and we see moms even conceive beyond that, you know. So
yeah, absolutely, that's exactly what we have seen as well. Primary infertility and secondary infertility is distinguished by the fact that primary would be the one when you are on your journey to conceive your first child, and secondary infertility is when you have already experienced the conception with your own children and are trying to conceive additional children. Then infertility factors, I really want to spend a bit of time here. On the female side, is really about like the physical side here. We are talking about infections in the cervical areas, but also polyps, fibroids. Polycystic ovary syndrome is another one that we often hear as PCOS. Endometriosis not only in the uterus lining, but also in the ovaries themselves. And of course, blockage in the fallopian tubes. This is all, these are all diagnoses that we have seen with our clients. Male infertility is more towards sperms here. So we have like the male infertilities with the very typical factors of low sperm count, poor motility, and abnormal shape. And plus, we can sometimes also get the diagnosis of genetics that is being passed on. We have seen men that have encountered unknown infections back to puberty time. Maybe there was an accident. I also had men with rugby encounters, with incidents during rugby plays, and then they didn't know that they encountered an infection. And years later, when they were trying to have a baby, they actually got to know that there were no sperms at all in their
Wow.
ejaculation.
Mm.
So it can be that men have an ejaculation, but there is 0 sperms involved in it. And there are ways on how to surgically actually help if possible, but usually we would then also move into a donor program with these men. Varicocele is another condition that we have seen. This is an abnormally dilated veins in the scrotum, and it can be surgically addressed as well. So I just wanted to mention a couple of more that we have seen here. Now, after setting the base of infertility, I really want to look into stress now. So we can experience stress into different ways, right? One is the positive one that makes us jump out of the bed, makes us euphoric, and makes us really strong. We can do this, we can move mountains. And then there is this other stress in our sympathetic system, which pulls us right into the emergency room. And of course, each of us is very unique and different, and we perceive stress in very different ways. So it can be finances, it can be social life, it can be relationship, it can be intimacy, trauma, job situations. All of them actually are being like censored by our hypothalamus, who is our boss in our brain and who decides actually in milliseconds whether it puts us into a healing room, a very relaxed and calm state of mind, or whether it puts us into this kind of like danger and emergency room. So we have this ongoing, like every split of second. And if we look at like an ideal setting of life, we would spend 95% in the healing room, and we would spend 5% in the emergency room. Now, if you just go back into, I know it's early morning, but maybe take yesterday and look back on how you experienced yesterday's day for yourself, and how much time did you spend in your healing room versus your emergency room. So this is one of the topics that I would sometimes discuss with my clients, and really just ask them, if you think back about like an average of how you spend your day, what would that be? So I often get like, oh, I would spend like 40% in my emergency room and 60% in my healing room. And this is always a good conversation opener to see like, well, what can be maybe adjusted? And first of all, what would actually sound good to you? What sounds achievable to you? Because yes, we know it's like statistics saying 95 to 5, but maybe for some this would be too stretching, including myself. So to really find out for yourself, like what would be something that you would feel and that would be achievable for you, and still feel, even though you spend a little bit more time in the emergency room, but it's okay because you still spend the majority of the time in your healing room. And what can you do to bring yourself back into your healing room? So sometimes it's great to wake up in the morning and still in bed, just think about like, how can I spend some time into my healing room this morning, the next hour, where I have maybe children to send off to school. Maybe I need to stress around the presentation for work. Maybe I need to catch that bus, or whatever it is, to really find out like, what can I embed into my next hour here to make it to maximize my time in my healing room, to get a really great start into my day.
That's a really good advice. And I mean, really good to start thinking about, sometimes we don't perceive it and we don't admit it to ourselves that we are actually in the emergency room, but we are pulled as moms in so many different directions, as you say, with work, with partners, with kids, and it is not always easy. So it's really good to look at that and be more mindful.
Exactly. And I think plus to acknowledge the fact that there are things that are in your control and there are simply things that are outside of your control. So it's okay to embrace and just radically accept it. That's another mantra that I'm reminding myself. Stress. So now we learned like how stress can affect us, right? And now it's evidence-based that shows us how stress actually can even affect our hormones. I'm showing here a picture of the female hormones, but actually the same goes for male hormones too. Men have estrogen as well, they have progesterone as well, and they have testosterone, insulin, and cortisol, and all these hormones. So it would affect women and men equally on hormones. So to the fact that actually it really can lead us into a magnitude when we talk about infertility, because then it can have an effect on the uterus lining when you are trying to conceive. It can have a effect on the ovulation. Even like some women, they come to us and they haven't experienced any periods anymore for the past 2 to 3 months. Their menstrual flow just stopped because of the high stress that they have been experiencing. And of course, if you look at nature, in nature, an antelope would never ever give birth to her baby antelope when she is threatened by lions. She would actually stop birthing and go and escape and then find a place where she can retreat, feel safe, and that's when she would give birth. And that is exactly something that we are seeing here in fertility as well when it comes to hormones. So I'm sure that as a professional in this field of birthing, Johanna, you must have seen that as well happening.
Totally. We see it all the time when the balance of hormones is out of kilter. Labor just doesn't progress. And often it's, taking a step back and thinking, what puts me, like you said, in the emergency room right now, which means the adrenaline is high and the oxytocin can't flow because they are antagonistic hormones, right? So if we have a care provider that isn't really supportive of our choices, or a nurse that barges in and, completely destroys the mood in the room, all of these incidents put us into the stress, kind of in the field of stress, and therefore labor and birth can't proceed. So
yeah, absolutely.
Totally see that all the time.
So we wanted then to find out in a little study for ourselves, because we saw this kind of like happening on and on and on. And so we decided to do like a little retrospective study with clients that we've seen in our counseling sessions and that were on a fertility journey. So it's a little bit small font size. I'm sorry for that. I tried to bring everything into one slide. So on the left side, you see female, and on the right side, you see male responses. And what we were trying to find out was like the emotional challenge between women and men. In terms of like their anxiety, general stress, job stress, financial stress, marital stress, family expectations, social pressure, social withdrawal, and guilt factor, the loss of confidence as well in their own fertility, as well as regrets and grief and loss. So these were like the markers, and we found out that, let me just pull up all of them so that we can see. So on the, oh, sorry, I went too far. So we see on the right-hand side, we see the male responses, and we see how job stress actually was really one of the highest. And if you look down on the explanation of the two bars rising here, the two pillars, the light blue is the one, those men that had an explained infertility factor versus those men who had like an unexplained infertility factor. So those were the ones that did all the tests, but then nothing came out. No explanation was given. Everything was fine. The doctor said, you know what, your test looks really great and yours as well. And there shouldn't be like anything against
Yeah.
pregnancy, right? So we saw that actually the job stress came out really strong, and it was actually linked to finance stress. And I think that's often something that we see with couples that are embarking on an IVF program, where the costs are just like going so high. And this is again something that we would actually address in our sessions with them, because it just doesn't help if you have finances at the back of your mind all the time while you are trying actually to conceive with an IVF program. Another one that we saw with men was family expectations, the parents putting a lot of pressure onto their son, especially if it was the firstborn son, the eldest son in the family. We can often see that, as well as putting high pressure on it of expectation of grandchildren. Another one is the guilt factor. This was exactly for those men who actually had a low quality sperm analysis getting back, and then the doctor advised to actually embark on an IVF. So they felt highly guilty in putting their wife through the IVF program because of male factor. And then there was some loss of confidence in fertility as well for men, especially because of course, if you are being told by your doctor that you have low sperm count and that your sperm is basically not good quality, it has an effect on manhood. Of course it does. And so that really is something that was reflected then in this little study that we did as well. And there was a grief and loss. There was a sense of grief and loss, but it was totally unrecognized. They didn't really feel that they were experiencing that. And only in the conversation with them, we found out actually you are grieving. And grieving in IVF or on a fertility journey per se is manifold. We could do a whole session on that because it has so many different aspects. For women, it was a similar kind of like a display, but a little bit with different emphasis. So there was more like a loss of confidence in their body and in fertility, in their own fertility, that actually went up the highest in this research, followed by the general stress and regrets, almost at the same level. So with women, we can see that there is this huge regret. I should have started earlier. I shouldn't have embarked on that MBA. I shouldn't have done that career. I should have married earlier. I shouldn't have traveled and all that, right? So it's a lot of shouldn't when we have this conversation with women with infertility factors. So here again, it's really like, this was like the ranking of the two, just to show you again, like what scored the highest for women and what scored the highest for men. It's really interesting here that for men, it's really like also the marital issues that came up, which didn't come up in such a strong way for women, actually. It didn't make it to the rankings, but there was social withdrawal for women. So we often hear like, I can't take it anymore to look at the pregnancy news from my friends on social media. I stopped following them, or I just don't want to go and have a lunch with my friend because she's currently pregnant or whatever. So these are things that are coming up a lot that we can see with women.
I think fertility is a really lonely journey. It is often, we don't talk about it. The multiple courses often that we are going through, we sort of want to keep it all under wraps because we don't want to get too excited. We don't want everybody to know, because what if? And this is one of the hardest things I find in trying to conceive, is that you can't have no one to talk about it with them. Sorry.
Yes,
my words, but the social loneliness is a big factor. And nowadays, when we're all bombarded with Instagram, we're constantly on social media. There's no way to escape other people's journeys as well. So
absolutely. To actually just wanted to add on to that because it feels so alone and because it's such a taboo topic still and stigmatized, it leads to such a high stress that there was a study that showed that the stress for couples going through a fertility journey is higher than higher or equal stress than for those experiencing a termination illness like cancer.
Wow.
And that shows you how stressful a fertility journey can be. And the difference that was found is really those with an illness, they can talk about it and they get a lot of compassion and support when they talk about their illness. For those that are encountering fertility or infertility, they choose not to talk about it and it makes them feel really alone. And that was like the finding of this study. It was absolutely mind-blowing to see that. So after then we investigated into how unexplained fertility has such an impact onto the well-being of our clients, we then took the data and wanted to see and what does the secondary infertility do with our clients? And we realized, wow, this is much more complex than what we thought, because all of a sudden we got the job stress was still there for men, but for women, the secondary infertility went higher up for generic stress, for financial stress, as well as for the loss of confidence in fertility. And this is especially because when you have experienced pregnancy before, you have this trust and confidence that actually, and maybe it happened even with the blink of an eye, which you often hear from people, right? From women saying we decided to build our family and 3 months later, I got pregnant with our first one. I didn't even think about it, right? So you hear that very often. And for the second one, what we see is that there is much more planning going into it because they're trying to get it right. And because there is so much more planning, the pressure arises. And if it doesn't happen in the months that they were planning, it should happen. Then comes 1 month after the next, and it's a buildup of this kind of stress. And when it doesn't happen after 6 to 12 months, then they start thinking, oh my God, what's wrong with my body? Maybe something went wrong with my birth. Maybe something got disrupted in my uterus. Maybe when I was birthing the placenta and that doctor gave me that shot, maybe something happened to my uterus then. So there are all these additional questions coming up, which then creates a whole new spectrum of stress being put onto them, because then they start even believe that something must have gone wrong with their body. So this is a really complex issue then, because we can only find out if they started doing more investigative research into this with their doctor, which then again leads to more appointments. And when you have a toddler, some have enough help in Singapore, right? But there are many women who actually don't get access to childcare or to babysitters, and they have to go to the gynecologist with a toddler, and that alone is also a very, as we can all imagine, it's not a straightforward kind of session or appointment then. And you have the same going on the male side as well. Interestingly enough, there is still guilt and there is still social withdrawal here. And there is more loss of confidence in the fertility here. So they also look at sleep, nutrition more rigorously then. These are things that become all more complex on both sides, actually. So we can really bring it down if we look at the research data. It's secondary infertility factors. It's a potpourri of age, of lifestyle, of medical conditions, And what we find out in our team when we discuss it about it, it's really like how previous pregnancy complications or birth trauma has actually taken impact onto this. This is something that we can truly see.
That's really interesting, actually, because I think birth trauma has become a big topic. And as a birth doula, this is very close to my heart as well. We hear some stories of, births not going the way they were planned. And the grief of that comes into the picture too. And we do see, unfortunately, where, moms and dads very much, even more so, come out a little bit traumatized. And dads in particular don't have the option, or don't think they have the option, of actually discussing any of this with their mates over a beer. They tend to sort of brush things under the carpet. And I can totally see how that can then affect, a second, trying to conceive for a second baby.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely spot on. So we have now the base of infertility. We have a good knowledge of stress, and we now also see the differences between men and women. And now I would like to cover a little bit more about the IVF to build everything together. So I usually like to chop an IVF journey into like 5 phases, simply because it helps also to keep more focus and gain more clarity for our clients, because sometimes they are like simply overwhelmed by, embarking on an IVF program. And when we help to actually slot it down into the 5 phases, it just helps them so much better to digest the information that they are getting, and they gain a really great focus and momentum. So we start with before IVF. That can even be before they have decided to do an IVF. That is like a decision-making process. Sometimes they are not sure whether or not to embark on an IVF, or the more complicated one is when one is absolutely
Got it.
start with it, and the other one is very hesitant about it. So these are very interesting sessions that we are having. Then we have hormone stimulation phase, which is usually your 10 to 12 days of injecting yourself into the tummy to get the follicles stimulating hormones into your body. Then we have, at the end of that, we have an egg retrieval, followed by the fertilization in the laboratory of the eggs and the sperms that were collected. And then usually we have a couple of weeks later, we have the embryo transfer, and then followed by a 2 weeks waiting time with the pregnancy test at the end. So looking at all this, we also want to see like what are the emotional hotspots? Where are the highest stressors? And in the many sessions that we had so far, we can truly say these are the hotspots, and there are a couple of them on an IVF. So we have already like some hotspots before they embark on an IVF journey, because maybe they carry a backpack, and in that backpack we talk about previous loss, about a miscarriage, about maybe a birth trauma that they experienced before that, or maybe the marital relationship is just not where it should be at the moment. They have been having many discussions. And so forth. Or maybe they saw like one doctor and it didn't match, so they saw a different one, still it didn't match. So they are still searching for the dream team, so to say. We'll talk about that as well. Hormone stimulation is a different story, because it's really bringing in pharmaceutical knowledge and experience into your body that is being injected. So we have a lot of women who prefer the natural way, of course. And so the thought of injecting yourself on a daily basis with a liquid that is being put into your syringe is not a thought that that all of them can embrace the same way. Egg retrieval is based on studies, on research studies. The egg retrieval and the embryo transfers are the 2 highest stressors. Why is that? Egg retrieval, it's because simply that's very well considered for like almost like a testing day for many women. They feel like, now I'm getting to know how many eggs are finally there, right? And so if it's not the number that you had in your expecting mind, then it's a disappointment. And you feel very stressed out, because it can sometimes even mean that you have to go through the whole hormones injections again, because there was maybe not the expected outcome. And the embryo transfer is really brings it really down to the point where once the embryo is being transferred into the woman's body, nothing is there to control it anymore from then onwards. And this is a very, very difficult thought to embrace it for many, because up until then, they were able to manage appointments. They even took those injections, even though they didn't want to. They went through this procedure of the egg retrieval and everything. And finally, they got this peace of mind that they have their embryos. But then a whole new stress comes up when they are preparing for embryo transfer, because that's when they realize, I cannot do anything anymore.
Yeah.
And we actually really try to offer them a different perspective on it, because there is still a lot that you can do during an embryo transfer and the following 2 weeks. It's just the way how you want to look at it, of course. And then comes like the pregnancy test. When it comes very close to the pregnancy test, we can see that the stresses are arising as well again towards the end of those 2 weeks waiting time. And I put another marker after the pregnancy test, because depending on the outcome of the pregnancy test, it can either lead you into the disappointment, it didn't work, and it puts an emotional stress again onto the couple, onto the woman, or it can actually lead into a positive pregnancy test. But then, even then, we can see that the stress is rising, because now they are almost shocked that they got pregnant. And maybe for those who have experienced miscarriage and loss before, they will be reminded almost immediately about it. But remember last time? Okay, let's see first. So it's like this kind of like being happy, but then also being super careful and having this anxiety always here at the back of your head. So it's really like the power of this professional support is really key. Whoever you are bringing into your so-called dream team is really like forming your dream team of support. So it's about understanding like what are some of the past experiences that you maybe need to look at, and decide when you want to look at it. Do you want to look at it before you embark on this journey, or while you're on this journey? Seeking support groups is really a helpful tool. Self-care practice is absolutely empowering. And if you really come to the point where you need to talk to someone, then I would say go and look for someone who can really help you, to support you on this. So here, I also wanted to outline what is the ideal support that we are looking for if we take like now the IVF journey, right? For us, we could see the most helpful is to actually do 5 sessions when someone embarks on an IVF program. And we have been playing around with 3 sessions, with 2 sessions, with 10 sessions, with, for those that needed extended help, with 20 sessions. But I think if you look at the ideal support for someone who doesn't carry a lot of weight into the backpack, it will be down to 5 sessions. That would be ideal. It will be before embarking on an IVF journey, to get like mind and body connected, so that the two of them can really work as a dream team. It will be for hormone stimulation, to get the mindset right, to work with the right set of affirmations. Then before embryo transfer, I would usually say ideally like 2 days to 7 days before that, or at least on the day of the embryo transfer. Then in the 2nd week or halfway through the 2 weeks waiting time as a check-in. And then of course, when it comes to the pregnancy test. This is really like where we can see our clients can build resilience, they can build confidence and trust. So I think I have also, put a few comments here from clients when we asked them, did it really work for you? And they said that really they felt less stressed and absolutely less anxious about it. And they found that the tools that they got provided with were really, really helpful. In that study that we did, we also asked them about, like, again, on the tools and on stress. So 80% of them felt absolutely less stressed and 95% felt that the tools were really helpful. Another one, which I find really beautiful, is when they came back and said, like, they really found that the marital relationship got a positive, more positive strengthening in there. We also have, there are also more and more studies showing that the psychological counseling and IVF, actually just going into the blue box here, where it says like the power to decrease psychological problems such as anxiety and depressive disorders and considerably enhance the conception rates during IVF treatment. One study here even says like it had a pregnancy rate up to 56%. And this was based with a program. I know that Professor Alice Domer, who I absolutely admire, she has written many books, and we met her at a conference in Hong Kong, and she came up with a 10 weeks IVF program to connect the mind and the body, and she had an equal very high number as well. It was around your 45% of higher pregnancy rate through a very succinct program in IVF. So we can therefore really say that a fertility counseling can help to reduce stress and anxiety. It definitely improves emotional well-being. That's what we have been seeing. It gives you coping mechanism on how to work with that. It definitely gives guidance on decision-making processes. It facilitates communication between the couple, but also what we emphasize a lot is also on how to communicate with your parents or with your friends, with the social environment when you embark on a fertility journey or when you have experienced loss, such as a miscarriage, because many people want actually to help. They mean it well with the couples, but they don't know how. So we also empower our couples on how to communicate in such instances, as well as mediation. So we had a few instances where there was like some clash between the clinic and the couple, or the couple and the doctor. And by just mediation between them, and sometimes we even join in for those meetings, or we brief the couple before they go into the meeting and brief the doctor, and we got like tremendous results into seeing how then, or like it sometimes just needs a little bit to see how this energy is being shifted towards a really positive way.
This is actually amazing to see that you have developed over the years this good relationship with all the, I think you know the whole landscape here in Singapore, and
yes,
have gained their trust. And also I bet they are seeing too that the outcomes are different when they involve your team.
Yes. Yes, so I didn't actually show the slide with the doctor's comments, but actually we interviewed the doctors as well to find out whether they seen some differences when a couple got counseling or not. And they all came back and said like they would be in much a calmer state. They would be more open to really work together and also embrace new perspectives that the doctor might come up with. And they feel also that the results of the egg retrieval, when you see like the number of follicles, the number went up. And it's
Wow.
really interesting to see that. Also, we couldn't really pinpoint because it takes a lot of more efforts to run a study on looking at pregnancy outcomes per se. And we are not connected with a university who usually gets the funds for it, but the doctors truly said that they strongly believe that the counseling made a difference in the pregnancy outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, getting such a statement from an IVF doctor, even from an embryologist, is kind of like getting, that's the best, that's the best you can get. Because I always look at it as a team approach. It's not just us. There is nurses, there is doctors, there is embryologists, and of course there is a dream team surrounding the couple as well. But we all are doing it for the well-being of our clients. We really put the clients in the center of it, and I think it's the best when you can do such a beautiful collaboration with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this is, I wouldn't be able to do this all on my own, of course. So there is a team behind it. I was sharing with Johanna just before. We have some being in Singapore, and we have some being already in London or moving to London. So we are going into now more a global representation with our team. And the counseling service that we provide is really for natural conception. I would say we have a very specific knowledge in the assisted reproductive area, such as IUI and IVF, but also a very good knowledge of donor programs. You need to be an ANZICA member for donor programs. And so far, we are the only ones in Singapore being ANZICA members. Elective egg freezing, we also provide our counseling services for early pregnancy when there is a lot of uncertainty and maybe past experiences coming up. Elective termination, it happens, and redundancy as well. So these are topics that we cover as well. And of course, loss and grief and trauma is a very specific area of our work as well.
Sorry, Tanja, it might just be me not understanding, but what do you mean by redundancy?
Redundancy, yes. Redundancy is when someone encounters a multiple pregnancy with twins or triplets.
Yeah.
And then we see that because of emotional and mental challenges, the woman wants to go down to a singleton. A very difficult decision, takes counseling into it, usually 2 or 3 sessions of it, plus also the doctor's perspective to do that. Yeah.
Okay, great.
We had this with women who experienced a traumatic birth before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we really I want really to emphasize that we really like to take the holistic approach. So counseling is just one puzzle jigsaw piece here in this whole spectrum to create your dream team. To all those that are on a fertility journey, I highly, highly encourage you to build your dream team. Dream team of those that are doing you good, that you feel like when you go there, when you go into the yoga session, or you go to do acupuncture, or you prepare a healthy meal and you want to know even more about it and want to make an appointment with a nutritionist, or exercising with a personal trainer, or spend more time. For men especially, it's so super important to create a fantastic dream team around you. This is when we have seen magic happen, because this is when you start letting go, because you have the trust and confidence that you are surrounded by an amazing team that is taking care of your well-being.
Mm-hmm. That is amazing. And I mean, we had a nutritionist the other day, Marie Bellin. I'm not sure if you're familiar with her, but she talked about the nutritional aspect of an IVF journey as well. So that was super interesting. It's just that sometimes when moms or couples go through the financial stresses of the IVF journey, especially with multiple IVF attempts as well, the financial strain is there. So about, knowing where do I invest my money? Can I afford to also bring a nutritionist, a dietitian, a personal trainer, and so on board? So these are often difficult discussions to have as a couple as well. So
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So one is the financial stress that you just mentioned, Johanna, and the other one, what I'm seeing a lot, is also time constraint.
yes.
Because they are trying, so couples are trying to do the best to prepare optimally for their pregnancy, and then they find themselves running from one appointment to the next and being completely stressed out, to the point where I just have now such a client who actually felt completely overwhelmed because her week was full of these appointments, acupuncture in the East Coast, but then the yoga was in the West Coast, and then she had to run for another appointment. And I said to her, maybe sometimes less is more, sometimes just reset, cancel everything, take a break from everything, and then you decide as a couple which ones are the ones that helps me the most right now.
Mm-hmm. That's good advice, I think.
It's really good. So just before we dive into maybe more questions, key takeaways really like pregnancy complications and birth trauma can contribute to secondary infertility. That has been something that we have been seeing off and on. Unexplained infertility is the most impactful one of all the diagnoses. Significant differences in gender coping with stress factors. So this is especially for couples. So have a good discussion about it. That's my advice. Emphasize on being on a fertility journey together. I can't emphasize enough on this. Sometimes, they come and tell me they feel so lonely, even within the relationship. And this is really sad to hear that.
Yeah.
I know that both of them want to spend time together, but they just don't know how to approach it anymore sometimes because they are so lost in pursuing this baby making and this pregnancy and everything, and it becomes really hard on them. So to really find ways on bringing you as a couple together is super, super important. And decreasing anxiety and stress is absolutely key for your hormones to increase your chances of conception. Super, super, super important. Can't emphasize enough. So I prepared a little case study, but I'm not sure. I'm also happy to take questions, Johanna. So shall we? Not sure whether you got any questions or...
No, I haven't got any questions in the chat, but mummies, raise your hand. Oh, actually, raise your hands. I can't see that. But text us, send us a message, and we can take your questions for sure. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and go into the case study for now.
Okay, great, good. So this is a client. I changed her name. I met her a couple of years back, Gina, 34 years in age, based in Singapore. Her medical background, she was one of the classic one. All medical checkups came back and being fine, even the more investigative one. So she went on to even do like a uterus scratch. There was a checkup for a fibroid, cysts, whatever, because she was trying for 2.5 years for her second one, the number 2. She had a daughter, 4 years old, conceived naturally, just really classic, stopped with the anti-baby pill and then got pregnant within 2 months. And she was a very kind of like natural person. She liked to take it the natural way. And she was dreaming of this natural birth with her husband at her side and feeling calm and peaceful and joyful to give birth. So she read every book on pregnancy and birthing. And she did birth preparation class as well in Singapore, everything. And finally, she ended up with an emergency C-section. So she came with this information. Her husband's sperm showed a low morphology, but it was not really like, in that sense, super low. So it meant that we could work with it. You just have to maybe try out a couple of times until you get pregnant with the right sperm. But it was not like a serious one and a call for an IVF really. So they came to see me because she said like they tried for 2.5 years and now she had enough and she really wanted to embark on an IVF. And when we started to discuss and lay out, you know, the history a little bit, we soon found out, firstly, she experienced a birth trauma without really knowing about it. And she even experienced a postnatal depression without being really conscious about it. And plus, she shared the history of her mom having experienced bulimia and hiding the pregnancy with herself back then, because she really wanted to show her features and had like a body image problem. So all of this really added up saying, well, there were some blockages. So we started releasing the birth trauma, and then we started to address and work with forgiveness and all the, you know, the typical therapeutical tools that we have to let go of what happened to her. We had to bring in her daughter again to actually do the bonding again, because that got completely lost with that emergency C-section. So there was a bit of that disruption between her and her daughter in the closeness. So we brought that back again, and we brought back also something to really feel joyful again, because she felt terribly guilty towards her daughter because she was so much focusing on getting pregnant again that her daughter kind of like she lost track with the relationship with her daughter. Exactly. And also there was not really something that she was enjoying anymore. So we were exploring about hobbies and things that she once loved. And she is a really one of the loveliest women that loves cooking. And so she started to embark on actually writing a cookbook, which was amazing because it started to shift her whole energy from feeling frustrated, from feeling like deeply, deeply unhappy, disconnected with her daughter and disconnected with her husband, to becoming that beautiful family that she felt really like this heart was lighting up, and was so, so beautiful to see all of it. So it took about 3 sessions for her to turn around the whole energy, to shift the perspectives on her journey, to embrace it. And then she got pregnant naturally another 3 months down the road, which shows you that it can happen in very few sessions. It doesn't mean because you embark on counseling, you have to sign up for a package of 10 sessions. Absolutely not. I always say, you know, I'm always careful with packages. I did once a mani-pedi package and I never used it because I found out I'm actually not the mani-pedi type of person. So since then, I promised myself, if I build up my own company, I will never do sales on packages for my clients. Never. It's just on the go. You take what you need to shift your energy, and when you are fine and you feel like you got it, you're off.
Amazing. Yeah. Tanja, we have 2 questions for you. So one mommy is asking, she's curious if you are seeing positive results in older patients too. This mom is 39 years old.
Yes. Positive results in pregnancy for natural conception or for IVF?
Oh, I'm not sure, she didn't.
Oh, I was wondering about IVF.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Yes, absolutely. 39 is like what we discussed at the very beginning. It's really not, it's just the age on your passport is what I'm saying. What we are looking at is like how you are embarking on it. At the point of embarking onto IVF, I think it's a good way to do like a checkup with yourself to see like where is your mental and emotional health at the moment in this. Are you fully prepared to dive into an IVF? Or do you need maybe some help to really build the foundation and to build resilience so that you have the confidence and trust to go into this IVF feeling strong and feeling that your body can do that. So we are seeing absolutely positive results, 39, 40, 41. My client right now, she's 43. And we are seeing that she's responding extremely well to follicle stimulation. So it's fantastic.
Amazing. That's really good to hear. And another question was, would you suggest to do these sessions as a couple or individual sessions as well? This is another mom who's 39 and
Yes,
also
yes.
embark on.
That's a fantastic question. I usually like to see them both in the very first session, and simply because it helps to see like what the dynamic is. And then sometimes we work like couple session, then we have single sessions for one or the other or both, and then we bring them together again. However, I have also seen women who were pro-counseling and the husbands were like, I don't need that. It's nothing for me, right? So then a good way is to start maybe on your own and start to do some of the work that is maybe needed, and then bring in the husband. And it helps sometimes if you explain to the husband, hey, it's not counseling or therapy on you today. You're just here to listen, to see how we can help your wife even better.
Yeah.
To strengthen this relationship, because often husbands are reluctant to come into counseling because they think they are being criticized for what they are not doing or all the things they are doing wrong. And that's absolutely not the way how it works. Absolutely not.
That's good to know. I've got another question, which is, what is the difference between a fertility coaching and fertility counseling?
Yeah, that's a really good question too. Fertility coaching, I would say, look at it like, can I draw it quickly? Do you mind?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Okay, because it's when you see this, you understand everything. So can you see this?
I think just stop sharing.
Okay.
We can have a better view of your, yeah, perfect.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So this is the timeline of a fertility journey of your life, basically. This is today, and this is future. This is the past. So basically, counseling would be like more on a therapy level when you go back into the past and you resolve issues that maybe happened in past experiences. It could be from childhood, it could be from puberty, it could be from a birthing experience that you had. Coaching is more directed towards the future. This is like when you work with tools like visualization, or you work with affirmations to really strengthen the confidence in like seeing like what can you do from now onwards each and every day to build up that resilience. So this would be like the main difference between the two. So in our sessions, we work with both, because sometimes we have clients who really come in and say like, expectation for today is that we built affirmations for me today. I really want to work on that. And even though I know that she had a trauma and we discussed it, that one day we will work on it, usually we just need to wait until it's the right time. Trauma can be resolved in one session if it's the right time. And it can take up to 10 sessions and not be resolved if the client is being pressured into it. So last that we want to do is that we pressure our clients actually into doing something that is against their will. We would never do that.
Amazing. Did you go through all of your presentation, or was there?
I was just looking at it right now. Let me take a look. I think there was a slide on resources. Shall I pull that up, Johanna?
Great, or it would also be great if we could share it later too.
Absolutely. Yes, yes. So,
Right.
I mean, there are many resources there. Maybe they can take a photo of it. But I think the books on fertility by Professor Alice Dormer, they are just golden. I just love them so much. Then the books on fertility and conception, which actually is really a nice basic, kind of like it gives you really nice basic by Zita West, are fantastic. And Megan Logan has a book on self-love that I absolutely love and that has helped actually many women to work through it as well. It's really, really beautiful book. And then on loss, it's of course the champion Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, a Swiss-American psychiatrist who did a lot of work in loss. For apps, I think most of my clients, they are more tech-savvy than I am. Circle and Bloom proves to be one that has really great meditations, also for each and every stage of an IVF journey, as well as of mindful IVF. And for Facebook groups, of course, we have like Singapore-based groups as well as worldwide groups. I mentioned here one of them. And then, of course, your amazing groups, Johanna. I got to know at the beginning, just before we went on, you have up to 12 different separated WhatsApp groups for basically all the stages, right? This is simply amazing. I mean,
that's it. I mean, we've got, I won't go into the details of all of them, but we definitely have a group for moms who are trying to conceive. We've got a WhatsApp group for lost mamas as well. So these, if you want to join any, and pregnancy, of course, as well. So if you want to join any of them, you just drop us a WhatsApp message and we can add you to that. It's just so good to see, even if we're not very active in the groups necessarily sometimes, it's just good to see that we're not the only ones going through something like this. So it definitely improves the loneliness factor kind of thing. And for some of these groups, we also meet in person. So you're always welcome to share, to come and join us for that as well.
That's amazing. Also, I just wanted to say, I launched the podcast. I'm a little bit shy to share it yet, but it is online. It is available. It's called Your Fertility Counsellor. So I am talking about the fertility journey. I'm sharing lots of tools in there. I'm also talking about IVF, and I have guest speakers lined up. So it's only the second month now that I'm into podcasting, and I think the whole idea came just out of my passion, because
Amazing.
I really just feel that I am so passionate about this topic, and I just want to share with a greater audience. That's yeah.
I love that. And I think, it always helps when someone has gone through this whole journey herself. And I think it's also so important to have this focus. I think when you've really found your niche, you deal with this all the time. So therefore it helps you have a deeper understanding of it all, I think, and you have the connections that clients will need and appreciate as well. So that's amazing.
Yeah. So having said that, Johanna, I would really love to have you as a guest as well in my podcast, because there is so much that we can share for a very specific audience there as well.
Yeah,
yes.
Love that. I would love that anytime. Okay, well, we've reached the end of the presentation. So we will share all your details of the clinic and so on as well under the YouTube, where we will post this video later, and then share it with all our audiences as well. So thank you so much for spending your morning with us. And thank you so much to all the mummies who joined this morning. Always lovely to see you. And yeah, thanks again. And I hope you all have a really great day.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye-bye.